right, welcome to We Are Smoking Spiel. It's your boy Kaleo. There's my man Big Mike. We are
So,
here. Mike, what's good, man?
and man, it's a beautiful night in Baltimore, man. It's good to be back on the show, man, and ready to dig into one of my favorites right here.
Absolutely, absolutely. I'm actually glad you picked this one. I hadn't seen it in a while, and it brought back a lot of memories and a lot of things I didn't notice as a kid watching this.
hmm
And just like the awesome all-star cast. But before we get there, there's one question I gotta ask you. Everybody knows what it is. What are you smoking on tonight?
Tonight, man, I have the Purple Grape by Fumari mixed with Twice the Ice by Trifecta. It's giving me like a good little grape minty mix here, man.
Nice.
Trifecta. This stuff is really potent, man. You open the top, it hits you right away. You mix it with the purple grape, man. It's a nice combo, man, and give me some nice pulls, man, and some nice flavorful pulls. I'll put it that way.
Nice. Yeah, so we're big fans of Fumari on the show. I'm also I got Fumari orange cream. First time
Right.
trying it. So far, so good. Kind of like a dreamsicle. That's the orange cream thing. But what's your thoughts on trifecta? I know that's one of the ones that I got turned on to later in the game. One of my hookah guys told me about it. And I think it's comparable to Fumari, if not a tad better, depending on what flavor you get. But what are your thoughts?
And I haven't really smoked too much of it myself, but I'm a big fan of the mint
Mhm,
and some of the other flavors as well. I'm more of a Fumari guy. I've definitely smoked a lot of these flavors just in
mhm,
the past couple of months alone. But I'm definitely planning on giving Trifecta um, more of a chance and ordering
mhm.
more of their flavors, man, and getting it in.
Absolutely, absolutely. So, look, without further ado, look, I'm excited. The reason why we are here tonight, what we are going to talk about, we're going to talk about. Let's just get to it. The Meteor Man, starring Robert Townsend. Wow,
Yeah.
wow. And I'm glad you picked this movie. It's been a while since I've seen it, and actually, um, it's out of print. So, but it was easy for me to find, and with Amazon around, you can find a lot of things. A lot of people had it up on their stores to sell, but found it, got it within a couple of days, and I've watched it twice just to revisit. But prior to you picking this movie, when's the last time you saw it?
Oh man, it's been a few months. Every now and then, man, it's one of my favorite movies, so I do watch it. I would say a couple times a year.
Nice, nice.
I have it on DVD, so now that I have a PS5 to play it on, man. I
Hmm.
definitely it definitely gets gets some airplay, man, a lot more frequently now that I have something to play it on. I had a digital version on like an external drive
Hmm.
before, but the quality of it just wasn't that great, man. So I really didn't watch it that often, man. But on Blu-ray, man, it's about as crisp as it can be,
Oh my
man.
god, it's amazing
What
on Blu-ray.
what's available,
Yep, yep,
right now, given that it is out of print.
yep. So 1993, released August 6th of that year, directed by Robert Townsend, who also stars in it. Budget $20 million, which I found to be that's great for a movie made in 1993 with a $20 million budget. It's pretty intense. Uh, but box office success in the states was only $8 million.
Mhm.
So, needless to say, it fell short, at least in the states, of making its budget. I couldn't find the global success of it, but it's a hood favorite. So maybe
Mhm.
it's one of those things that caught on later and made its money back after the fact. As far as
Right,
when it went to print. But
right.
let's just go over this cast. Now, Robert Townsend, we all know, very talented writer, director. He's behind a lot of your favorite movies. Five Heartbeats, for sure. That alone has its own crazy story.
Mhm.
Hollywood Shuffle. Right, he used to do Robert Townsend and Friends on HBO. Uh, Incredible guy. And Parenthood, that was a TV series.
Yep.
Always positive characters. Uh, portraying a black man on television, always positive.
Right.
And he's really funny and talented. So let's get to this cast. Robert Townsend as Jeff Reed. We got Don Cheadle as Goldilocks. James Earl Jones as Mr. Moses. Roy Fagan as Simon. Now, a lot of people, you won't recognize Roy Fagan as a name, but he is a consistent in all of Robert Townsend's movies. Now, if you've seen Five Heartbeats, he is the guy that got asked the question, what time are my hours of operation open by Reds, as he was dangled over the ledge.
Yep.
So he's a consistent in Robert Townsend movies. Eddie Griffin as Michael. Robert Guillaume as as Mr. Reed, Jeff's dad. Marla Gibbs as his mom. Bill Cosby as Marvin. Now, 93, Bill Cosby was on top of NBC.
Oh yeah.
I'm going to leave that joke there, but we'll stick with NBC for right now.
Right.
But Luther Vandross. Come on now. Nobody like Luther. Sinbad as Malik. That one I forgot all about. And when he shows up, I was floored because Sinbad was one of those guys who's on top of his game too in 93. Big Daddy Kane. Everybody loves Kane. Frank Gorshin as Mr. Byers. If you don't know who Frank Gorshin is, this is the one that really surprised me, because when I did my research, like, oh no, that's the original Riddler from the Batman 1956 Adam West series. I was like, I know this guy from somewhere. I couldn't place him. He's just way older and had a mustache. This is him. Tom Tiny Zeus Lister. Debo, if you don't know who that is. He has many nicknames. John Witherspoon. Bang, 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 bang. Pops. Jennifer Lewis, who plays everybody's mom in a lot of these movies. It's an early Jennifer Lewis, too. And she plays the mom in this as well. Faison Love. That one, yeah, you got to catch that one to figure that one out. Faison Love. Tretch. Beverly Johnson. Leela Roshan. LaWanda Page. LaWanda Page from Sanford and Son. People don't know. She's also one of Jehovah's Witnesses at the very beginning of Friday. Biz Marquis. Nobody beats the Biz. Samuel L. Jackson. Nancy Wilson. And then there's one more that went unaccredited, and a couple went unaccredited, but there's one more that, if you know the voice, you'll recognize it. But when we get to that scene, Mike, I'll let you do the honors in talking about that. So,
yeah, gotcha.
The Meteor Man takes place in Washington, D.C., right? But shot in Baltimore.
Right, yeah. Set in DC, shot in Baltimore. Being here in Baltimore over the past few years, man, you start just you notice almost immediately, man. You see the opening credits. Of course, you'll see like shots of like the Washington Monument, the Smithsonian, and all the DC landmarks. But then maybe like a minute in, man, you start seeing, when they start showing like the row homes and stuff like that, you're like, oh, wait a minute, these aren't DC row homes. These are definitely Baltimore row homes.
Yep.
And Baltimore's a city of neighborhoods, man. So you automatically can kind of figure out what neighborhood it's in almost immediately, man. And you're like, oh man, that's in Reservoir Hill. And then so you automatically, me personally, man, I immediately started to just try to figure out like what street and stuff it was on. And as we dig deeper,
have you found it?
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Nice.
Oh,
is it still intact?
So I haven't been there yet, man. I'm planning on doing like a photo shoot, man, and just
nice
capturing some of the spots that was in Meteor Man and kind of comparing what it looks like now. But yeah, man, it was shot. It was shot right on Kaleo Street, right in Reservoir Hill. I think Kaleo and Park Streets. And in the movie, man, there was a scene where Jefferson Reed's father, man, he's in the community center, and he has this map up, and the map actually says Kaleo Street, Park Avenue, and there was another street on there as well. But it was funny, they didn't rename that to any DC streets.
DC streets. Smart, yeah.
and so it literally said where the movie was being filmed at in that scene.
Mhm.
But it was primarily on Callow Street. But I'm gonna make a visit out there, man, and try to get some pictures of like the
Nice.
community center, Jeff's house, and some of the other scenes that were in the movie.
Yeah. Now we were young when this was being filmed and released. I'm wondering what what the vibe was around Baltimore when he came into film. And I was trying to find how long it took him to film this movie. Could not find it. Do you know how long it took to film?
I'm actually not sure, man.
Okay.
There's probably some old Baltimore Sun articles on it somewhere, where it highlighted him filming in the city and stuff. But
Right.
as far
Right.
as like how long it took, I'm really not sure.
Yeah. Okay. So let's dive in. If you haven't seen The Meteor Man is about a school teacher, Jefferson Reed. He's a school teacher, kind of mild mannered, very respectable, nice guy. Everybody loves him. Uh, but he's also afraid of confrontation. He kind of runs from the confrontation. So nice guy, whatever, music teacher in the school, and his neighborhood is being overrun by the gang, the Golden Lords. You see their tags all over the town. They've even infiltrated the schools. It's bad. It's bad. It's bad. It's bad. And one night, while being chased by the Golden Lords, uh, Jeff gets hit by a meteor, and the meteor gives him superpowers. Hence the title, the Meteor Man. And with his superpowers, comes the responsibility of what? Crime fighting, taking down the Golden Lords. So that's the standard synopsis of the movie. Regular guy gets superpowers, and then begins to take down the crime. So we'll start with that. Now, I
Mhm.
want to say this has to be, and I think it's safe to say, the first black superhero movie that I've come to know in our time. It may be
Right.
period because this is 93. Blank Man didn't drop to 94.
Hmm. Yeah, Blank Panther dropped to 94, and I don't know, man. Maybe this is why I like the movie so much, man, because like it came out as I was a kid, so just seeing that representation.
Yep.
Even though there's definitely a lot of comedy elements in the movie, it's not as serious as like Superman or even the Batman series, and that's
Mhm.
obvious immediately in the movie, but still the representation alone,
Yep.
and the fact that it has a DMV type type of setting to it, man. It's just definitely meant more to me growing up. Just seeing that as a kid, man. It definitely even to this day, man, it's still one of my favorite movies
Yeah.
just because of that alone.
And let's get into it. Like, is when opening credits of the movie, we get black representation at its best off the break. We get Michael Jackson leading in the opening credits with was that Can't Let Her Get Away?
Yeah, yeah. The movie opens with MJ, man, and
I've forgotten
can't
all
let it get
about
away.
that.
Hmm.
As an adult, I play the movie and I watch. It's like, oh, Mike has the opening. So like you pulled
Yeah.
Mike for the soundtrack. That's awesome. And that sets the tone for just the representation we're going to see in the movie. And now that I'm thinking about it, I'm really thinking, I don't know if we see many white people in this movie at all.
I mean, yeah, there's not many, man,
But
but the
besides,
ones that we do see are very, very popular. Like even I guess Jefferson Reed, one of his teachers, one of his
yeah, okay, you
high
get to
school
teach, yeah,
guy, Mr. Little, who had he was in a lot of movies in the '90s. Well, the guy who played Mr. Little was
yep,
Wallace Shawn, and he he complains about the kids were
jacking up his
slashing his
car.
tires and stuff like that. But that guy alone, man, he was in a lot of movies in the '90s,
Yeah,
man.
Princess
So
Bride,
yeah,
inconceivable.
yeah,
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 okay,
yeah,
you're
yeah.
right.
He's in a ton
And
of
then
movies.
Frank Gorshin I talked about, yeah. So not
Yep, yep.
not many, but a couple.
Right, right, right.
So, but let's talk about character development, right? So we start off with Jeff, and one of the early conversations Jeff has in the movie is with Mr. Moses, James Earl Jones. James Earl
Mhm.
Jones alone is a pioneer. And what I found funny about the introduction of Mr. Moses is it's very obvious he's a toupee guy, right?
Right.
But the conversation about, I think what's important about this opening conversation with Mr. Moses is he's a vinyl collector, records. He
Yep.
loves music,
Yep. Mhm.
an apartment full of it. And Jeff makes the comment of, I would trade you. You know, he offered to trade 2 records for another one of his records. And Mr. Moses is like, no, I would never part with any of my records. I would never do anything like that. Um, but this sets the tone for something that happens later in the movie with Mr.
Right.
Moses. That's why that conversation, although it doesn't seem important at first, it's pivotal in the movie.
Oh, yeah.
But also the character of Mr. Moses he's probably in his 60s, going on 70s. He's older,
Mhm.
but he's got all these toupees. But he when he's talking to Jeff, he tries on two toupees. He has one on, and then he puts another one on. But I found it interesting. They never mention toupee, and then they never show him on screen switching the toupee out. Just
Yeah,
something
man.
small that I noticed, that when he switches,
Right.
they switched off of him, and he come back, he has it on, and they switch again. So
Yeah.
I don't know. I think I think it's something to that, because later on again you get a significant scene when that happens. But yeah, so Mr. Moses, then you meet, like, there's a lady in an apartment that watches Jeff's dog. I can't remember her name, but she's super nice. She's like the landlord or the tenant of the building. She's sweeping the sides. Eddie
Yep.
Griffin plays the typical sidekick in the movie, best friend kind of role. And they're both musicians. Well, he's a scientist, but they both play in a band. That's Jeff's big opportunity, that evening of the movie when it starts. Jeff is going to play. He's got a big audition or big show. He plays bass that he's going to play in. So that's the whole setup of just the opening scenes, that Jeff is finally getting this. And then also there's a moment in the school. This is how you know Jeff uh, runs from any type of uh, confrontation, because he gets called in the principal's office, and there's a kid who's all bullied and beat up, and I think he's in a sling, and his parents are mad at Jeff because Jeff told the kid not to stand up for himself, just to run. Right. So that alone, we're all still on character development. This is telling you what kind of character Jeff is. He's gonna run if he gets the opportunity to. Don't stand up for yourself.
Right. Yeah. He's very non-confrontational type of guy. You know, I guess he was just trying to, like, show kids, like, hey, you don't have to fight. Try to use your words, but obviously that kid was not very successful in using his words, man. He was
Mhm.
getting pretty hurt out there, man, and that would, he would actually end up, you know switching over to the with baby lords, right? So
Mhm.
yeah, or at least he was attempting to. I think he was doing like an initiation
And
the night. Uh, yep.
we left off another bad creation. I forgot to mention them. They
Yeah,
were
another bad creation. They were the junior lords, I
Yeah,
believe. Yep.
they were a big group at the time. They had hit
Mhm.
Aisha. They were Michael Bivins' kid group.
Mhm.
They were
Yep.
everywhere, everywhere. So let's talk about this night. Let's set this night up. Jeff gets home that day, and we immediately see Jeff's dad. He's not afraid of anything. Right?
Mhm.
He's walking down the sidewalk. Golden Lords are out there selling drugs and just taking over the sidewalks, and Jeff's dad is not afraid of them at all. Said it was his neighborhood, his community, pretty much. He stands up to him. What does he do? Knocks the vial or the drugs out the guy's hand. Don Cheadle, who plays Goldilocks, is like, "He's lucky that didn't break." And then what does he do? He steps on it.
Mhm.
But there's, again, character development, letting you know that Jeff's dad is not afraid. I mean, he's willing to go toe to toe with these guys. But what I
Right.
found interesting was they have a neighborhood watch that they also do, and they're more so talk than action. So it's kind of like
Yeah.
it kind of just, it doesn't balance itself out right. They they want to bring down the Golden Lords, but they all talk, no action. and they're just dancing around in circles. But anyways, okay. Jeff's got this big thing he's getting ready to go. He's getting ready to go to his audition or his show that night, and he's all dressed up. He goes down to the neighborhood watch committee just to listen to them talk. Then he leaves out, and he notices his bass is gone. Right?
Yep. Yeah, his
Yep.
base is gone, and I think his car got broken into.
Yeah, right out front,
Right.
right out front the crib.
Right.
That's kind of how things are now in DC. But then he has his first confrontation with the Golden Lords. Right? There's a mugging. You have kids that's all about 5 or 6, maybe 7, robbing a lady right there in the alley. Jeff comes to find out there's his students. He recognizes those kids. Now, let's talk about your first initial thought about when you saw the Golden Lords as a unit, because there was a dark alley, and out of that you hear the slinky go, and then out of the dark alley you see the Golden Lords as a unit. Thoughts on that?
I mean, even watching it when I was younger, man, I thought it was just funny, man. You're seeing like this militarized group, man, from like what I don't know how old the younger kids were, well, what 7 6 7 years old, all the way
Yeah.
up until 30s 40s, man, was just coming out of the darkness, man, with these blonde hair of all different types, man.
And a
It was,
tiger.
it was- and a tiger, just for one person. I mean,
Yeah.
it wasn't. I mean, just for Jeff, who's very unconfrontational.
Mm-hmm.
They seemed like they were rolling kind of big, man, for one person.
Get ready to
You're
take
trying
him
to
out.
show force on a certain block, but it
Yeah.
seemed like an overkill, man. But at the same time, it was definitely it was definitely funny.
Yeah. So we know what Jeff's going to do next, right? He's going to run.
Yeah, he ran, man, and he ran, and I think he jumped into a dumpster and
Yep.
stayed in there for like 4 hours, man.
See, I got that same note. I was like,
Watch, wait, what's
this
going
guy's
on?
in
He
this
really stayed
dumpster.
in there until 2 in the morning.
It was like 9:30, and the next thing you know, the watch flashes forward. It's like 2:30 in the morning. Like, wow.
Yeah,
But Jeff gets out the trash can, and immediately the meteor is on his ass.
yeah. He like cut a corner, and the meteor was right there, man, just heading on down, man, and
Yeah. So
it hit him, man.
now we're coming into play as far as reality versus fiction kind of thing. Uh,
Mhm.
Now, typically, if a meteor were to hit you or to get that close to hit you, like it would probably burn you alive or just kill you right then and there. But for some
Right.
reason, it liked Jeff. It took to Jeff, and probably about 3/4 of the media was injected into Jeff.
Yep. Yeah, 3/4, and the rest went to Bill Cosby.
Yeah.
You
They hid
know,
that as a reveal, though. You just see Marvin. Well, you didn't know it was Marvin. You see somebody else pick it up, right? But
yeah, I think you
anyways,
saw like the dogs or something.
mhm.
You saw this guy kind of sleeping in a corner, a dark corner, and his dogs kind of found like kind of found Jeff in like the remaining parts of the meteor, I
Mhm.
guess.
Yeah.
But yeah, it was later revealed it was
So
Marvin who picked it up.
Jeff goes to the hospital. Jeff's in the hospital, and that's when Jeff starts to realize. Well, first of all, he's probably out for a while. Like he's bandaged up. He said he had like 3rd-degree burns. He was like torched. And in a matter of I'm assuming a day, like his vitals come back completely
Hmm.
clean. Like there's nothing that ever happened to this guy. It's probably a picture of health at this point, right? And they remove the bandages, and everybody's just standing around, like you're like, and you're thinking it's one thing. You're thinking like this guy's like mangled. The
Right.
camera switches over and he looks the same. Um, but this is where the first play comes into Jeff realizing something's different. He has superpowers, right? It was with the book. There was the doctor didn't want to believe that something like that could happen, and he blamed it on something else. And
Yeah,
Jeff,
he gave like a medical definition, and then I guess the medical book accidentally bumps up to Jeff's hand, and that's when he realizes he can remember books in its entirety for about 30 seconds. So he proves the doctor wrong, and everyone's like amazed. And they're, and then
Then he
someone,
goes
then
stupid.
the doctor asks him like another medical question, and Jeff goes into it at the beginning, but then he loses
Stupid.
memory
Like
of the
I don't
book
know.
after 30 seconds.
Yeah.
And the doctor's like, "Oh, see, I told you
I
this.
told you
This guy doesn't know
didn't
what
know
he's talking
this. um, so let's flash forward a little bit. So in the hospital, Jeff realizes his superpowers. He's got X-ray vision. Um, he knows the book thing. He can hear through layers of whatever. He gets home, and uh, that's when like the show, the teacher, him and the teacher at the staff meeting come into play, where he's looking through the walls. The teacher's talking about how his car is destroyed by this kid every day. He doesn't know why, and Jeff realizes through the walls that he can see this kid currently damaging this other kid, stealing. Um, and I think he still doesn't understand what's happening to him. Right? Why? Um, then he comes to realize he can hear his dog
about."
talk. But let's get into like the first real time Jeff puts his powers on display. Uh, Golden Lords come back for revenge on Jeff's dad, right? And there's like a scene outside of the crib, and Jeff kind of stands up for his dad by, well, that's what Zeus hits him and breaks his hand.
Yep.
Then the car chase happens, and he slams his hand on the trunk, the hood, and guys fly out. Like the showdown is real, like in front of everybody, so everybody can see what's happened to Jeff. And then from there, what does he become? He becomes the hero. Like he has no choice to become the, even if he doesn't want to be, because we know he was still standoffish at the moment. Even with his superpowers, he was so standoffish and not wanting the confrontation. But
Right. Yeah. Yeah, man. Yeah. I think that like you said, character development, man. He slowly begins to a accept his powers, b start to utilize it, especially once his friend Mike kind of discovers what he what Jefferson can do. I think
Mhm.
they were in an apartment, and Jeff wanted to show him like, hey, I can talk to the dog, and he begins talking to the dog, and then he's like, oh, I can memorize books, I can do this, I can do that, and then Mike's like, he's like, yeah, man, you're a superhero, man, and that's when it kind of like hits him like, hey, I have superpowers. And then of course when his mom finds out, she
She's got to make him. She's got to make him a costume.
wants to make up a costume and stuff like that, and that's when like the community finally realized like, hey, we have someone who can finally
Really.
stand up to the Golden Lords, even though this guy Jefferson, man, he's not a very confrontational person. We're gonna still put him out there because he has he can fly, even though he's afraid of heights. He's bulletproof. You know,
Right.
he does learn though. I guess the more he uses his powers, it slowly begins to drain his powers because he hasn't touched a meteor and like to kind of replenish his powers and stuff like that. So
So that
yeah,
was the confusing part to me about Jeff's powers. Now, when they're gone, or were they diminishing because he wasn't getting ample rest? I could that was the one thing I couldn't understand. Was he just the powers is temporary until the meteor depleted from him?
I think it was a mixture of both. I think it was like the more of his powers he used, he would go into like these deep sleeps where
Mhm. Be
he wouldn't
drained.
even realize that he was late for work and stuff like that.
Mm.
Um, but also the more of it that he used, it was just he would just have like I guess like I guess shorter like his power level would just be shorter than it was maybe like the day before, just because he's using more and more of it. So he needs a meteor. He needs like a meteor fragment or something to kind of like give him
Charging.
all recharge him back to like 100%.
Gotcha. So, needless safe to say that eventually Jeff's powers are probably going to deplete all the way at some point.
Mhm.
Let's talk Simon and let's talk Goldilocks. Goldilocks is Don Cheadle. He's kind of like the lackey, like the number two in charge of the Golden Lord, somewhat, the street gang. He does all the grunt work. He's attacked Jeff, or tried to attack Jeff a couple of times, and when Jeff puts his powers on display, like these guys are. I mean, he got hit in a drive by, and he got shot
Yeah,
up.
it was funny because I mean he's out there, trying to basically defeat Meteor Man. But every time we report back to Simon, Simon didn't believe
Yep.
what was going on until we actually went out there with him, and then he saw like, hey, this guy this guy really can duck bullets and
Yeah.
fly and all this stuff, because at first, I mean, Simon didn't believe anything that Goldilocks was telling him.
Yeah. And that it didn't sound real.
It didn't sound real, but I mean,
Yeah.
he found out, man. I mean,
So let's talk a little bit about Simon, because Simon was the ultimate. He's the super villain. Okay, he plays the villain in the movie. Um, he's hands off on a lot of the dirty doings. He's probably earned his stripes, but we come to find out Simon has someone that he answers to. Right?
right,
There's always a bigger, higher power. There's always somebody, and when I come to find out, like, the ultimate crime boss is always a white dude. No matter what movie it is, I'm gonna get you sucker. Mr. Biggs is a white guy. Like, no matter how big these gangs are, there's always some white dude that they have to answer to.
right.
Um, but uh, so Simon does. He comes up, and I think he has a couple confrontations with Meteor Man. Um, but let's talk. Let's see, where do we want to take this? Let's talk. Okay, you know what? Let's talk finally the costume. Jeff starts to believe in himself. Gets the costume from his mom. He's out doing work. He's shutting down crack houses. He's bringing the two rival gangs that are shooting at each other. Looks like the Bloods and the Crips in the middle of DC,
Right, right,
shooting at each other. No, shooting with each other, shooting at the cops. And he brings both of them together as a peace offering. Like, he's out here saving his city, ridding the Golden Lords. Like, he's making them look completely bad. But then that's when we start to notice that the more that he does, even planted that garden, the more that he does, he's drained and he's becoming mortal again.
right.
And this is time for Simon to pounce, right? Um, but the more he does, but the more the Golden Lords respond to that neighborhood. Like, there was one scene where Jeff's in the well, what happens? Let's start here. It's one scene where Jeff's in the house sleep, and he just completely misses everything that happens in the neighborhood. Comes out and the neighborhood is trashed.
Right.
But before we go there, let's back up, because we have the point where Jeff has the costume, because this is a pivotal part too. Jeff has the costume and he's sleep at night, and we see somebody break in the house and take the costume. And
Yeah, man, that was a funny scene, man. Well, it ended up being funny, man, because he comes to find out that it was his best friend Mike,
Andy Griffin, yep.
and which is funny, man. Which is weird to me, man, because like, why would you steal the costume the night after, the community gets trashed, or was it
It was prior
something
to.
happened the night before? It was like the Golden Lords either came up directly to Jeff and threatened them, or it was the night the neighborhood got trapped. But that wouldn't make me want to take the uniform after that, because I'm just like, man, like, now.
That's what it was. That was the night Simon showed up and accused Jeff of being Meteor Man. No, he showed up at the school. He showed up at
Showed
the
up at the
school.
school, yeah, and they were both there, so it was just like, why would that make you want to take the uniform after that? I'm just like, now you got a target on your back and you don't have any power, so it's just like, but yeah, so Mike, man, he took the costume, man. He's in the mall and
To meet a lady.
to meet a lady. He's flashing himself around.
All
And
the
it's like
wrong reasons. Putting himself in the
all the wrong
middle of.
reasons, man. But Jeff finds out that he's at, he finds out through the radio that Meteor Man is at the mall. So he goes over there, man, and finds out that it's Mike, you know,
What
dressed
the?
as Meteor Man.
Okay.
And it was
Here's my question. I'm glad you said that because it triggered a memory. Well, first of all, we first see John Witherspoon has a small part in the movie, but he's there. With all the success of Meteor Man, people are jumping out of the woodwork saying that they're Meteor Man. John Witherspoon is one of the guys who says he's Meteor Man. He's on the news.
yeah.
He's a piece of crap of a character. He's been in jail, and he's seen the error of his ways, and he's Meteor Man ready to fight crime. Here is the question, Mike, and I don't know if you thought about this. So between that and between Mike still in the costume with the mask on, Meteor Man doesn't wear a mask. How does no one know Jeff Reed is How do they not know that he's Meteor Man? He doesn't wear a
It,
mask.
it's crazy, man. I don't know, man. I don't know if it was just people on that block who only knew that it was Jeff or what, man, because it seemed like everyone outside of that block that he lived on, no one knew it was him for
Yeah,
for,
maybe no
for whatever
social
reason.
media back then, only news coverage, and he
Yeah, and then the
moved to a
news
point no
was
one saw it.
they were still trying to figure out who Meteor Man was. So you had all these characters coming out of the woodwork. You had um, you had John Witherspoon coming out, man, and obviously it wasn't him, man, but it was
But
just
it's just a funny scene.
funny,
Uh,
man.
but
Yeah.
yeah, back to the mall. So Mike steals the costume. He's got a mask on.
Mhm.
But let's talk about the voice of, because it's like a fashion show going on in the mall, right? Or some type of party, and there's a DJ. So let's talk about that unaccredited voice. You don't even see the face; you just know the voice. Talk about that.
Yeah, man. So as Mike is portraying himself as Meteor Man with the mask on, you know, Jefferson rolls in, man, and he basically sees that Mike's immediately in trouble because the Golden Lords are there. So
Mm-hmm.
Mike, basically just Jefferson basically just points his finger at Mike from across the mall and makes him fly to escape the Golden Lords. But as he's doing that, there's a DJ in the background basically saying, "Hey, there's Meteor Man. He's in the crowd. He's flying around and all this stuff." The voice is actually Chris Tucker. If you listen closely, you're like,
That is
you know the
crazy.
voice. You know Chris Tucker's voice, man. If you watch Friday, Fifth
Super
Element.
animated.
I
Super
mean,
animated.
it's him, man, and that just adds, that just adds to another, laundry list of celebrities in this movie, man.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Um, and so the thing is, that scene, uh, they go to get Meteor Man, who was Mike at the time, but Simon and Luther Vandross spot Jeff kind
Yeah.
of navigating the scene of Mike and Meteor Man flying and all that. Um, so then Mike and Jefferson have the conversation outside the mall. Mike apologizes that he took the costume for all the wrong reasons. He was trying to hook up with the news reporter. And
Mhm.
Jefferson strips his ass down right there in front of the mall, all the way down to his boxers, which is pretty funny. But I think that that part right there, obviously now Simon knows where he is, who he is, and that sets up the scene where Jeff sleeps through all of that. The Golden Lords coming in, even with the big boss, Mr.
Mhm.
Byers. They come to Jeff's home. The dog, luckily, is strong enough to drag a 100+ pound human being off
Yep.
of a bed to behind the couch with covers on top. So his dog has superpowers too. But Jeff sleeps through about 6 hours worth of whatever happened to that neighbor, like tagging, damage, goods, and all that. And Jeff awakens, and the neighbors, like at this point, it's like one of those things where the neighbors are starting to regret giving Jeff not that power, but turn him into, you know, the hero, because now they're suffering, because with great reward comes great consequence, right? We hear that all the time.
Right. Right. Yep.
Um, so Jeff stumbles upon, because he awakens, he stumbles upon the neighborhood watch, or the neighbor the committee, talking about how we've got to get Jeff out the neighborhood, and maybe we'll strike a truce with the Golden Lords.
Mm-hmm.
You can have the neighborhood, stop damaging the goods. We'll kick Jeff out. Jeff was like, "No, I'll leave. I'll leave." And then what happens is, from there, when Jeff proves a good point, he was like, "If all you guys do is talk and do nothing, no action, how can you think anything is going to change?" Like, Jeff is having a change of heart now. He knows that the only way things get solved is standing up for yourself.
Right.
So with that, you have, Jeff, I'm leaving town kind of moment. But the whole, like, James Earl Jones, like, his Mr. Moses, he's like, his eyes are full of tears. It's like everybody is full of regret, because they're too scared to do anything, and they know they're just throwing Jeff out on the ledge to get rid of him. Then you have the showdown. Now it's time for Jeff and Simon to come to blows. Jeff has no powers,
Yep.
or limited powers at this point. So
yeah. Jeff's obviously weak at this point, man. But I think for him, it kind of shows where he started out and where he's now at. Like, he didn't have any powers at this point, but he's still willing to actually stand up
Yep.
for himself and actually
He's a different
fight.
person.
So he's a different person, even though he doesn't have the superpowers from the meteor to help him out. So with that said, I mean, once like the final fight scene starts, man, he gets beat real bad at first,
Pummeled.
man.
He's getting pummeled.
Yeah, man, he's pummeled.
Until what happens? I mean, they're getting ready to kill Jeff, to the point where the gun is pointed to his head. And it goes back to that pivotal, that insignificant conversation we thought was in the very beginning with Mr. Moses, to the part where Mr. Moses saves Jeff's life by throwing the record out of the window.
Yeah.
When you just see the vinyl knock the gun out of his hand, and everybody looks to see where that came from, and it's Mr. Moses. What record was that to with vinyl? I mean, I guess it's a movie though. But yeah, that's the pivotal part of, we're gonna stand up and fight. And then he gets caught up in his own window as they get ready to point the gun at him, take Mr. Moses out. But then the student, Jeff's kid, one of his kids, kicks the gun out of the hand, and then throws it. And then now we're on. Now we're getting ready to throw down. Neighbors come out with cast iron skillets, brooms. The old lady upstairs throwing potatoes out the window.
Yeah. They finally, the community finally banded together to actually put the neighborhood watch to use. Even though it's a little bit, it's not too late, but it's, it just shows that, hey, we're gonna finally come together and as a community and try to get rid of the Golden Lords, instead of trying to rely on one person to
We're gonna do it together,
be a savior for the whole city.
But that's not the end of that. There, what happens?
Oh man,
The lady with the potato knocks the meteor, the what's left of Marvin's meteor, out of his hand.
Yeah, Marvin shows up and he begins kind of doing things in the background to kind of assist with the fight, and then he has the leftover meteor. It's in a coffee can, right? And then
potatoes.
He loses it, man. It's almost like a fumble, like a football. And
the funny part, the lady in the
everyone's
window,
reaching
you
for
see
it,
her winding up. She's winding up with the potato. She just launches it and knocks the damn meteor out of Marvin's hand.
Yep.
And then here we go. The meteor in a slow motion cinematic tumble falls between Jeff and Simon.
Yep.
They both do a power grab.
Yeah, they both grab it, man. So they both now share
half of
the
that
powers of the
quarter of that meteor.
Yep.
Now, Here is my question. You just said it. They both share the power of what's left of that meteor. Why the hell was Simon beating the hell out of Jeff after that? Why? I don't get that. They both share the same powers. Jeff took lesser of the. I don't. It took longer for Jeff to kick in because Simon was getting the best of Jeff, and Jeff had the powers as well. Maybe it's just cinematic. Maybe I'm thinking too much for the big. It's
I
always
don't know.
about for the.
Maybe Simon was simply about that life, and he just knew he was just a better fighter in general, just because that's what
Good
he
point.
did.
Good point.
Jeff. I mean, he's just not a fighter, not anything related to conversations. Just wasn't him, man. So I think Simon was simply a better
That's a good
fighter.
point. That's a
So
good
I
point.
mean, I'm gonna say that. I don't really know, but
No, but that's a good
yeah.
interpretation of that question. The funny part that happens at that point in time is there just happens to be a bookmobile on the middle
Mhm.
out in the street, and Jeff gets tossed to the bookmobile and out. And then we know what happens with Jeff and books. He ends up hitting the Bruce Lee, and Jeff just takes out as many Golden Lords as he can, but seems like longer than 30 seconds to me. But again, movie cinematic kind of stuff. But Jeff gets thrown back on a pile of books, or he's looking for the book again, and he finds one that looks just like it, but it's runway model. And
Yeah,
him
yeah.
and
Runway
Simon have the
modeling.
runway model kind of sashay off in the middle of the street, in the middle of like this epic battle.
Yeah, man. Yeah, they grabbed the runway modeling book, man, and they're just it's like they're just going down a runway, man,
Yeah,
and
it's
showing
funny.
off. And
It
I
was
was like,
funny.
man, yeah.
Yeah,
So
that's funny.
yeah,
Uh,
yeah, yeah,
then Jeff gets thrown on top of the building, like Marvin kind of not Marvin. I'm sorry, Simon just tosses Jeff away, and Simon hits us with the "I am God," like the ultimate villain line. "I am God." Like, no, I'm going to rule the world. I'm going to rule here on Earth. Uh, to the point where he tells his guys to shoot him. Like like the power has gone to his head that quick.
right.
And then
Yeah,
what
yeah. He
happened?
just yeah, man. I mean, basically, yeah. He's like, yeah, shoot me. Don Cheadle and the rest of them, man. They pull out the AKs, man. They
Just
shoot
light
him,
him up, like in the middle of the street.
Meteor Man. I mean, he basically you know, he shows up from the top of the building,
In
right,
the
and
costume,
in the costume, man, and just
puts him
swoops down, man, knocks him down, man, and ties him up. And basically by tying him up in those cables or whatever, he's
uh-huh,
able to extract the powers from Simon,
save the day.
and and that's when I think that's when with like Luther and the rest of the guys, man, they pull up.
Just when you thought it was safe, the rest
Yeah,
of the
the
mob
Golden
shows
Lords are
up.
gone. The big the I guess the big bosses show up.
Big Daddy shows up, Mr. Byers, with his
Mr.
whole crew, and they're
Byers.
all on like Rolls Royces and Benzes and all that. Like these are the guys that you typically don't need. They only come when shit hits the fan, and they're there. Um, but again, things that happened earlier in the movie that happen now is the once rival gang shows up to uh to save Jeff. Um, it's good stuff. Um, and I think it kind of ends there. Like that's like kind of around the last scene with Meteor Man. And I'm trying to think, was there anything we missed? Not, I think we captured it all. So to me, obviously again, 1993. The graphics were pretty good. Special effects were pretty good for the time frame that it was. I'm assuming that's why the budget was so high,
Mhm.
because Robert Townsend wanted to capture all that. So here's my question that we always ask: um, Is this a classic?
To me, it is, man. Like I said, man, growing up, not really seeing a lot of black superheroes at the time. This was a pivotal movie for me. Even in my 30s, man, this is still a very. I still hold this movie very near and dear to my heart, man. Even though, yeah, it didn't do well in the movies in the theaters. I don't know what Cisco, Ebert, and all those guys did. Uh, to me, it's a classic, even though it may be considered a cult classic, depending on who you ask.
Mhm.
It's definitely a classic to me.
All right. How many rings are you giving it?
I'm giving it 5, man. It's definitely 5 in my book, man. You know, a lot of my favorite actors are in this movie. Don Cheadle, man, he's still one of my favorites. I'm still a big fan of Robert Townsend. Like I have some memorabilia from the movie. I should have brought it on the show, but I mean, but it's a favorite to me, man. I still put people onto this movie. People have forgotten about it over the years, man. And then a few people, man, they remember it, but they just can't find it anywhere
Mhm.
because it's out of print. So, I would let people borrow the movie and check it out for themselves, and they're like,
Mhm.
"Oh man, this is good," or so. Hey, to me, man, it's a favorite that I still recommend people watch, even if it's just one time.
Absolutely. Now, is it a classic to me? Absolutely, it's a classic. For
Uh,
all, and I'm 5 rings as well. Why? Because the black representation in that movie from start to finish as a cast, the way that movie was casted, we didn't even talk about Sinbad. Sinbad shows up as Malik. Jeff is in love or wants to date one of the teachers at his school. Comes to find out she's dating this guy Malik, who just started dating black women. And he's trying to get. He's like
yeah,
super
yeah, man. He's
sensitive. He's Afrocentric. Like
yeah,
it's hilarious. Sinbad is hilarious.
yeah,
And just
Sinbad,
for the
man.
little role that he had.
Yeah, and a lot of these characters, man, they were big outside of Meteor Man, and but
Yeah.
Robert Thompson was able to get these big names all in one movie. I definitely appreciate that, man. They even had the nurse in there, Vanessa, played by Layla Robinson. Man, she was also Sunshine on Harlem Nights,
Yep.
which
Yep. Yeah.
which at the so this movie was filmed in '93, only a couple years after Harlem Nights. So
Mhm.
people still know her as Sunshine. So that's how I knew her. I was like, oh man, they got Sunshine in
Yeah.
here as
So
like the beautiful nurse.
you and I think just alike because I was going to say this was, I feel like the response to Harlem Nights
Hmm.
on the PG side because Harlem Nights was a rated R all-star cast that Eddie Murphy put together with all his favorite comedians, and they shut it down.
Yep.
And a lot of people don't know that the whole beef between Eddie, Richard Pryor, and Bill Cosby at the time. Eddie chose Richard Pryor. I think he actually asked Bill to be in it, but there was too much going on for Bill to be in that movie. But
Yep.
Robert, I think, responded with this movie and an all-star black cast as well, and you have Bill Cosby in this. So yes, it's a classic. It's a 5 rings for sure. And like you said, I think that it just got lost in the midst of a lot of other good movies / superhero movies. Um, and people need to find this movie. So I'm glad you recommended this. Robert Townsend's Meteor Man. Hopefully you guys get on Amazon and you go watch it. Feels like a short watch, and I think that you guys will enjoy it. So check it out. Appreciate everybody for watching. We
Mhm.
see you next time here at Smoke Spiel.
All
Peace.
right, take it easy. Yep, peace.